Okay, I always say okay. If you want a book that will ruin all of your optimism, faith, and naivety about spying, The Looking Glass War by John le Carré is definitely it. It's the successor to The Spy Who Came in from the Cold, released in 1965, so 2 years after that initial release. It's in the beginning of le Carré's stardom, and as I've said, brutal. You still want to read it because there's very interesting parts, but it is brutal. So, let me give you the basic story first. During the early 1960s, there's a very diminished department within the British state. It's a military intelligence outfit. Now you may be thinking MI6, but no. That is referred to as the circus in this book, and it's separate. This is a sort of smaller competitor back in the day that is now no longer a competitor because it's so diminished. So, referred to obliquely as the department within the whole story. We don't really know what they are, but we know they're small, underfunded, and in their mind, underappreciated. The story opens with one of their number, a man called Taylor, on a routine run. He thinks it's not actually routine, as we will find out. As a courier, he's meant to pick up a roll of film in Finland, film that a pilot has picked up as they went across the Soviet Union on a flight. But the courier turns up dead the next day, supposedly run over by a car. As we know with every spy story, nobody who dies of natural causes. It's not how it works. So, they want to know more, first of all, about the film that they've already been searching for, and about the man who's died. So, as we return to the department in England, we meet a young John Avery, who is an officer within this department, middle ranking but climbing up, and he is sent off to Finland to collect the film, or find the film. He's sent under the pretext of being the brother of the dead man. Doesn't find the film, returns home to find an operation about to be commenced. Now, this operation concerns the film, and we finally learn the true purpose. This is about 60 pages in, quite early. We learn true purpose, which is that a defector told the department, specifically this department, that there were missiles being moved into East Germany. Now, this is like Cuba level crisis for them. Massive deal for this department that doesn't have really any significant role in intelligence anymore. They see a golden opportunity and they take it. So they authorize an operation, something they haven't done it forever. To do this, they recruit and train a Pole who worked for them in the war, now lives in England, runs a garage called Lysa. During the training, which takes place in Oxford, Lysa and the officer, young John Avery, develop a very close friendship. Now, eventually, intrigue plays out, and the department is this one training Lysa alone, no help from MI6, known as the Circus. They eventually send him in. They're waiting on a farmhouse in West Germany with Lysa, with John Avery, with his superiors, about to send him over the border. When they send him over, Lysa kills a young boy, but successfully enters in, makes his way to a town, and looks around. Now, they're already onto his tail because of the kill, but we quickly learn they're onto the tail of Lysa because of something worse. He's terrible at sending code, and basically broadcasts his location. He's running around trying to hide, and this is the moment when the circus arrives in the form of George Smiley, the most recognisable character in le Carré, the one that most people know, arriving at the farmhouse saying, basically, shut it down. You guys have nothing. The circus knew the whole time that this operation was nothing, and the defector that they relied on from the very start, who said there were missiles, is a known faker. He tells them, most importantly for the story, shut off your listening devices. So, this is where we circle around. During the training, when John Avery and Lysa became close, they became close because they would have to send coded messages to each other. Now, lots of practice of that, weeks of practice, tireless practice, made them grow close. Avery and another man are meant to be sitting there listening to the messages, but they're told, stop. Lysa is still out there, feels. Avery is told, it's over. You're leaving him, he can broadcast all he wants, we are not listening. essentially leaving him to die. And that is the story. Okay, so there are a few interesting things to note, and I think you'll find them true with almost all of le Carré's works, which is that fundamentally betrayal is the key driver in the story. So obviously the circumstances with which the department find out about the missiles in the first place is a supposed defector. It's the initial betrayal. Then there's, you could suppose, the betrayal of Lysa to his previous country. He was a German Pole. And then the last most brutal betrayal is the way Avery feels when he has to shut off the equipment and stop listening to his friend, fundamentally. But there's a deeper institutional betrayal, and that's what this book is so interesting about, because the book is very personal about the story of Lysa and his infiltration and, we suppose, death, but it's more importantly, it's about institutional betrayal, because the circus, which is where John le Carré worked, it's MI6, in this story knows what's going on and lets the operation play out and shuts it down. In the story, Control is a cruel, apathetic, emotionally incredibly apathetic man sat behind a desk, essentially playing with these people's lives as a game to diminish this other department's importance. Le Carré is basically describing, a Whitehall civil service struggle that results in real death, and that institutional, personal betrayal by one's own countrymen, not even in a espionage fashion. He's not betraying them to another country, it's just betraying them for more prominence. And it's that institutional betrayal that this book is so focused on. As I said, John Avery, the younger agent, he's formed a very close friendship with Lysa, and it's that personal friendship that le Carré uses to drive home the emotional point of this institutional betrayal for a reader, so it's still enjoyable to read because you enjoy this friendship that's incredibly close and almost risky by the standards of the time, the 60s. There are moments when his superiors question the friendship. They say you're too close. So that's the way le Carré explores it. As I've said, the betrayal is institutional and it's felt deeper. The feeling that you get at the end of the book, when the missiles and all of the drama and death is basically gone and left behind, is pretty hauntingly empty. I think that's what le Carré wants. His cynicism of his own profession is most at play here, and there's a reason why. So, we've done the characters and the story, now a bit of the background. As I've said, it comes 2 years after The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and le Carré actually stated that initially he thought the character of Lemus in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold was too much of a hero to many people, especially in Britain, and that he felt this book was needed as a direct response. This is in 2013 that he says this. He says this book is a direct response to that, to make the point of his cynicism about his own profession absolutely clear. So despite the success of his first book, this book is a lot more criticised, and it's treated quite harshly in the UK, particularly for not providing readers with enough sympathetic characters. Now, analysis of the actual book structure, I think that's kind of true. There are aspects to which you don't get character development in quite the same way you might get with some of his other books like Russia House, which I'll talk about later another time, but there are characters that are compelling, so I think that's harsh, but there's an element of truth, there's a grain of truth. In terms of the structure, it's interesting because you dart back and forth between countries, but it's very fast-paced, but also quite exploring of a slower Whitehall process, so there's a contrast there which is quite enjoyable. And fundamentally, most of all, there's good tragedy because you get the betrayal at the end, so the story structure worked well, and I enjoyed it despite the negative reaction at the time. I think the most important part of this book is the way it's brutally honest. So, again, people criticize it for incompetence that is within the characters, lack of really relatable people, and for its doom and gloom. But this is what makes it so good, right? Often, real life, people are incompetent, people are not nice, people are not sympathetic, and in this line of work particularly, it can be doom and gloom. This is a real portrayal of the world maybe even more so than The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, because there's more process within it. It makes it, and that's real portrayal, makes the tragedy even more real, because he's describing mundane stuff sometimes, the tragedy that comes at the end with Lysa's death is all the more biting for the audience. Through the Looking Glass Wall, le Carré is trying to make sure that there is no grand finale, there's no heroic ending, there's no blameless person, blameless party, blameless side. That, and more importantly, the interesting way he builds the characters, particularly the friendship, is what makes it so interesting, and it's what makes The Looking Glass Wall a book that's absolutely worth reading.